Hello, I'm Mark Shapiro. I am not a jazz musician, but please stay tuned. I am music director of the Cecilia Chorus and Orchestra of New York. And the reason that I'm here is that I have a collaboration with the fantastic jazz pianist and musician Cyrus Chestnut, which is going to happen in Carnegie Hall on Friday, April 19th at 8 p.m. And you can see the URL scrolling below my face, where you can get more information about that performance and links to buy tickets. So there's a lot to tell here. We are expecting Cyrus to join us, but as is always the case with things that happen on the internet, things can go wrong. So we haven't heard from Cyrus, but we are expecting him very soon. And meanwhile, I'm going to tell you a bit about this project, how it came to be, and what it is. So it happens that Cyrus's wife is Charlotte Small, who is a singer and a colleague of mine at Mannes College and the New School. We both teach there in New York, and we are friends. And as we all know, and Gail Boyd and I, Gail is the host of this program, we're just discussing the pandemic was a terrible time for musicians, for those of us in the live arts, terrible, and I think we're still coming out of it. And I ran into Charlotte in the lobby of the building as the pandemic was ending. And we got to talking, and she was sort of saying that there had been a project with Cyrus that was going to happen at the Kennedy Center, but that was canceled because of COVID and had not, at least not yet, been rescheduled. And I've been a fan of Cyrus Chestnut for so many years. I think what an incredible player he is, what an incredible musician. And in fact, I was kind of starstruck even to be talking about him. And then I thought about the project and I reached out to Charlotte and said, can you connect me with Cyrus? I'd like to talk to him about maybe there's a way to do something together. So it turned out that the project is a cycle of spirituals that Cyrus arranged and accompanies. So we made the proposal of creating an original piece, a 50-minute smaller version of what had been an evening length piece, and pairing it with a piece of classical music, which is by Beethoven. The Beethoven piece is called Christ on the Mount of Olives. It's an oratorio, wonderful, very dramatic, very touching, that tells the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, both his inner life and what happens to him. And as it happens, Cyrus's cycle tells exactly the same story. So we are doing what I think is a very unusual and imaginative program that music lovers will love. That is, the first half is Beethoven with orchestra and operatic soloists, and then the orchestra goes home, and the second half of the concert after intermission is Cyrus Chestnut accompanying the chorus with his trio, and with two soloists, one of whom is Charlotte, Cyrus's wife, singing the mezzo solo, and one of whom is South African tenor who is joining us for both halves, whose name is Makudu Sanaona. So I think that, we're all aware that this is a time in somehow the world, in our country, where there is so much division and separation, and, I'm on this team and not on that team, and you and I are not together. And I think that in my own heart, that is not where I want my music making to be. I want it to be about no division and about people uniting and joining. And when Cyrus and I spoke about this project, of course, I hope he can be here to speak for himself, but I think it would be fair to say that his heart is in the same place. That for him, music really is everybody's language. And what I think many really great musicians like Cyrus think about all the time is what great music has in common. So I think somebody like Cyrus is thinking about listening to Beethoven and thinking, what is tremendous in what Beethoven does? What are the things we both do? For example, both Beethoven and Cyrus are great pianists. Beethoven was a terrific pianist, as is Cyrus. And their music has all kinds of surprising turns. And it's a matter of using the harmonic language and putting things together that you expect and that surprise you. So I have heard Cyrus do some of this repertoire, and it is amazing for the chorus, an opportunity to sing spirituals, which are part of the great, great heritage of this country musically. Cyrus's arrangements are, as you would expect from Cyrus, completely idiomatic, and musically, harmonically, there are moments that are just glorious, where he's added an extended chord, something like that, and we loved learning the harmony, and it feels fantastic to sing. And this is really going to be the chorus, but also the Cyrus Chestnut show. So Cyrus himself, he told us that he has played at Carnegie Hall many, many times as a sideman, but amazingly, this is his first ever experience headlining at Carnegie Hall. And I think that's long overdue. And I'm so proud that the Cecilia Chorus of New York, with our orchestra, is able to present Cyrus Chestnut in his first ever time headlining at Carnegie Hall. And of course, part of what we want to have happen is for the people who know Cyrus and love him, and the people who know the kind of music that he plays may not be as familiar with him, but that everybody will turn out in droves and interested in both halves of the concert. I've heard Cyrus, I live quite near Smoke in New York, and I've heard him there. That's one kind of experience. It's a great experience. But honestly, I can't wait to hear Cyrus on the Carnegie Hall stage with a chorus of 150 people behind him and with his trio and performing for 2,000 people. I think that is really going to be a great experience for everybody involved. So again, that is happening on Friday, April 19th at 8 p.m. and at the strip that is scrolling below my face. You can get information about the program and links to buy tickets. And I really think it's going to be amazing. So one of the discoveries that I've had in doing this repertoire and preparing, Cyrus will be rehearsing with us for the first time Saturday, a week from Saturday, and as is so true of jazz, he finds so much space within the harmonic frame and the melodic frame of these pieces to create new things. And of course, I'm talking to an audience that knows all about that. I think as a classical musician, I and we are always extremely admiring and fascinated by the minds of jazz players, the ones who really come from a deeply musical place, as does Cyrus, find all this room inside of the harmonies to move around and find things to do and find absolutely captivating sounds. And then there is the experience of just Cyrus as a keyboard athlete is incredible. The way he moves around the keyboard, I've seen him do it. It's just amazing, and it sounds amazing. So that is how that story is going to be. It's an interesting experience. My background is classical for sure, but there are jazz players I've been aware of and gospel musicians. And I think, as I said, in my heart is the idea that all of this informs all of it. Everybody is together in the world. We're not thinking about whose is it, but it's ours. And I think Cyrus himself said to me, music is music. And I think we really both feel that. And it's such an honor to contemplate doing this project with him. We also have wonderful soloists on that program. Soprano Nicoletta Berry, who is from the Philippines and just finished Juilliard. Bass Matthew Anchel, who sings at the Metropolitan Opera. And then the South African tenor I mentioned, Makuro Seda Awana, who will be making his Carnegie Hall debut in both pieces. And how wonderful that we can present those people. So I'm looking at the comments and I see a question: how does the great Cecilia Chorus of New York work classical with jazz? And that's exactly, I think, the question that I love to be talking about. That the music that we sing, the choral music, a lot of the materials are the same. Jazz uses chords, classical music uses chords. Choruses sing chords, choruses sing melodies, jazz uses melodies. The difference, I think there are, of course, differences. Beethoven writes everything down. So Beethoven's music is completely notated, and he's also written a narrative that tells the story, as I mentioned, of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and the other characters are a seraph, an angel, and Peter. And there is a whole plot line of Jesus waiting quietly at night in the garden. You can feel his fear and his solitude and his feeling of being abandoned by God, very touching. And then a visitation from an angel, and the story develops. The spirituals that Cyrus has set to music are in a cycle of 6 of them, and they trace a very similar arc of moments of great interior concern, suffering, pain, and then the story and the metaphor of resurrection and this feeling of renewal. And both pieces do that. So the end of Beethoven does that, and the end of Chestnut does that. They both do it. So the way the program works is that the connector between the two, the chorus, is on both sides of the program. On the first half is the orchestra, and then on the second half is the mighty Cyrus Chestnut and his trio. So the way the jazz experience happens is through the magic of Cyrus himself. That's really the answer to that question. So there are passages where the chorus sings, and then the chorus recedes, and the jazz trio takes over, and Cyrus develops that material as jazz players do. The same way in a classical piece, there would be a cadenza for a soloist. The difference is then, or it's not so different really, Cyrus brings it back, the chorus comes back, and there's this kind of conversation where the chorus will sing what Cyrus wrote, and then Cyrus has space in the way he notated the score for his own improvisations. And of course, his improvisations are extraordinary. I'm thinking his technical problems are not resolved, so I may have to try to speak for him, and I can't really do that. But I sort of, his biography, you know, he's been on the scene for a number of years, released a number of recordings, and he is such an extraordinary talent. I think one of the things that we have liked doing in the Cecilia Chorus is presenting composers and soloists who are fantastic, but not necessarily as incredibly famous as they should be. Now, Cyrus Chestnut, I have dropped that name around. I have colleagues in the jazz world, and people really know. They really know. But you know, who gets famous and why? Very complicated story. So, as we've said, Cyrus has never headlined before in Carnegie Hall, and now is his chance. Now, I think there is a message on Facebook from Cyrus. He's trying to get on. Someone help, he says. So this is my opportunity to say thank you to our host, who is Gail Boyd, whom I mentioned, and also say thank you to Scott Thompson Media for coordinating this show. And then let's see. So there are, yes. Okay, so I'm seeing all kinds of excitement in the chat. Cyrus, please check your email. So I think he's coming. The link is coming. Um, and it's going to be great to see him. You've been very patient with me. Thank you. I've been talking for 20 minutes. Unfortunately, I can talk about Cyrus Chestnut, whom I have such reverence for and such a feeling of partnership in my heart musically to do this tremendous project together. So I think Cyrus is probably on his way in. So I'm going to suggest that people think about the kinds of questions you may want to be asking him, which will be, I'm sure, things like, how did he get into jazz? And I happen to know that he had early training as a classical pianist. I don't know if he will share that, but he did have early training as a classical pianist, encountered jazz quite young, I think before the age of 10. And I think then the die was cast and he followed that path, was very successful in his conservatory training in jazz, and then partnered with the most extraordinary jazz musicians the country has to offer. So I don't have his bio in front of me, and I don't want to misquote or miscredit, but the list is really awe-inspiring of the people that he has worked with. I'm wondering, any progress on getting him in? We'll soon see. So it's also, I think, worth mentioning, Gail Boyd mentioned to me that she had done this program for a number of years during the pandemic and then stopped. And today is just day 2 of bringing it back. And what an honor to be part of that experience. Thank you so much, Gail, for having me and Cyrus join you for this, let's say, resurrection of your wonderful program. The service that you provided to musicians during the pandemic is so important. I think we all felt so silenced, and for people who thought about us and gave us a platform, we are forever in your debt and forever grateful. So thank you for doing that. And again, thank you to Scott Thompson Media. So the date again, April 19th, 4 wonderful soloists, vocal soloists, and the great Cyrus Chestnut. And
Hey, there it is.
hi, Cyrus.
Okay, how are you? I don't
I'm
know.
good. How are
Something is
you?
going on. Hold on. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Something is. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Hold on. What's going on here? Oh, okay. All right. Are we there?
We are on.
Okay. Whew,
Okay.
okay.
Glad you made it. Good to see you, my friend.
Oh, good to see you as well. God.
Take a breath. It's all good.
I'm okay. I'm okay. I was here and I was like, how do I get on? How do
I
I
know.
get on?
Crazy.
I guess the first thing let me just say I want to say start off with saying some thank yous. First off, thank you, Mark, for this opportunity. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Scott. For this opportunity to talk about this in this really, as far as I'm concerned, a very historic moment. It's being able to present this story. Well, it's very dear to me, and to be able to present it in such a prestigious place, I feel I'm very honored, and I'm very humbled, and I really just really want to say thank you so much.
Well,
Um,
it's absolutely, I've been telling everybody while you were getting on how starstruck I am to be working with you. You
oh,
know, I've, I've known about your music making for so long, and I've been such a fan for so long. And maybe, we only will have about 7 minutes for the program, but maybe you can tell us now a bit about the piece itself. So I've explained the Beethoven and Chestnut and how these both
okay.
work. And I've sort of said, it's cycle of spirituals, but maybe you can say more about how the piece works.
Well, Power in the Blood is a collection of pieces from a larger work entitled The Saga of the Cross. And the Saga of the Cross is basically the Easter story told from the African American perspective. Um, with and to say that, meaning there's elements of the full African diaspora here, elements of jazz, gospel. There's even some there's some remnants of the classical idiom. It's just music told from respectively my point of view. Everything that I have experienced from a young kid, um, starting off from my dad teaching me piano around 5. I started at 3, all of the biographical things. Getting to the Peabody Preparatory at 9, studying a lot of studying the process of music there. I mentioned before getting to Monk at 9, and so playing in church from the age of 5. So all of that is a part of what goes into this. Um, when one thinks about, I guess, a gospel presentation or something like the Easter story, it is usually, in my opinion, I say this respectfully, done from one point of view. It's done a certain way, but um, to know me is that I kind of like a melting pot, if I could say. And anytime you might hear me play, you could hear a hymn. You were talking about Beethoven. You could hear remnants of Beethoven, Brahms, or Bach. You could hear a gospel romp all within. So this particular piece, it it, it's just simply again the story of Easter. There's the feet and the hands. There's the swinging rhythm. There also is the laments. There's harmonic color. A lot of different things that just basically is comes from my heart to the audience. Um, and I'm looking forward to it being a very an amazing, life changing, unforgettable experience.
We are too. And so I could just mention we've been given permission to talk a bit longer, so maybe I'll lead us in some directions.
Okay, all
Um,
right.
but I love what you said, Cyrus, that because I think I feel the same way, that when we are really focused on the music, it's about our ear and what comes in. So we're
Mhm.
not thinking about things we want to keep out.
Yep.
There's a real feeling in our heart and in our ear of saying yes to the world and yes to togetherness.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and this, I think it's the spirit for us for the program of having, we've been really saying Beethoven and Chestnut and putting you side by side in our artwork, and that
Mhm.
we really see the connection and the quality of those two people and
Yeah.
those two ears. And it seems to me, from what I know about your music making, that absolutely things come into your ear and then you just run with the ball. Does
Well, you know, as the composer, I like to think as a ongoing developing improviser. And I say developing improviser is improvisation is something that you just don't learn in 6 easy steps for 1995 plus shipping and handling. Um, it, I I think how can I say this? I thrive on theme and variations. Everything that comes out of me, what I've heard from my life, it's not just limited to Bud Powell or the Edwin Hawkins singers. That's all a part of it. Um, there's also Debussy there, and we mentioned there's also Beethoven there. Many different types of sound that is coming to my ear, and so it's my task then to figure out a way of how to tell the story um, skillfully, um, to tell it skillfully with no not making it a three-ring circus, but making a very unique story that comes from simply me. The the challenge I think is to, well, I was just talking about it earlier. Um, you can have, if you to understand me, you have to forgive me in advance for speaking in many analogies. I've been kind of taught that way coming up on the jazz scene. Um, I want to develop a cabinet, a kitchen cabinet that's full of different spices. So, and the reason is that when I prepare a dish, even if it's a dish that I'm very used to preparing, I don't always prepare it the same way. So, that being said, if I'm playing a piece of music, I would like to, I thrive on having different approaches. I believe that music, in many ways, should be within the spirit of the moment. It can be very chancy because, you know, if you take a chance, there's a 50% chance that you might be very successful, and then there's a 50% chance that you might flop. But in the process of getting in the quicksand, that's where I try to use all of my training to let only me know that I've made a mess of things and try to clean it up. Um, again, if I am again, if I'm going to be a spontaneous composer, improvisation, spontaneous composition. So when I sit down to play, it is theme and variations, yes, but I am in that moment. Do I know everything about the? Do I know? I'm learning everything about the process of using rhythm, melody, and harmony to develop a musical story. Um, Certain things are written down for those who want to know. Yeah, there are, but it's a template. It's a template of which I like to take the liberty of being able to approach different ways. Um,
So, if I could jump in for a moment, I think that's one of the things that we are loving and really looking forward to about the project is that the what the chorus can do is not so improvisatory for us, but we do feel we can absolutely create a space in which you can go to town. So,
well,
yeah.
the way how the work is done is that there's a template, and so I'll have the fun of working within the template, working around the template, you know,
Hmm.
you know, and so it's going to be fun. Now there is structure. There is
Sure.
structures.
Hmm.
Let's not just say, oh, I'm just going to go off. No, there is a template of which I do follow, but within that template, I will take liberties. I will take liberties. So what happens that evening is designed for that evening. I often say this a lot. What is designed for that evening is designed for those who listen on that evening. Um, if I would do it again, it would be completely different.
I
And
want to ask you something about that because my own feeling about performing is that we should be doing it for the moment.
yes,
And
yes.
I think there's a lot of pressure in our culture to do everything always the same way.
Well,
And I wonder how you feel about that.
well, I say this: we as human beings, we are not. In many ways, we are analog beings in a digital generation.
Well said.
So we're more than ones and zeros. And
Absolutely.
so um, even if we have a route, if we were leaving out of our house going a specific way, if we were to do it the same way for say 5 or 10 years, um, that would make us a little bit make our lives a little boring. But life, I believe, is designed in a way that if you will walk out your house to the store, forgive the analogies again. If you will walk out to your house to the store and it was always sunny, for about a year, just walking the same way with all of the same things, it would get very predictable. But what happens one day when you walk out to the store and you feel a raindrop? Or what happens when you walk out to the store and there's construction and then your route is all of a sudden altered? What do you do?
Hmm.
You know, do you sit there at the route and jump up and down and have a fit because how dare you do this? Or the human being, I believe, has a way of being able to adapt and change different things. And so, um, with I give total respect to the repertory, and there's a place for that. But um, I like to work with inside the repertory and around the repertory.
Yeah.
We create something for the moment. You
I
know,
want to speak to that, if I might, even in what I do in classical conducting, because I think that when you do it well, there is a lot of opportunity to do things in the moment as a
mhm,
classical conductor. And it is something you're really listening for, I think, if you're doing it right. Um, and I think that that whole feeling of living in the moment, I think actors do it also.
yes,
I think it's a big part of being on stage in a way that, and I think the audience can feel when it has that kind of life in the room,
yeah.
that things can happen.
There's a certain magic when things happen in the moment.
Yeah.
It's just designed at that moment. It's like some there's nothing wrong with being predictable, but sometimes every once in a while you need to have a little unpredictability to make one's eyes raise up. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
um, you know.
Cyrus, there's a question in the chat about who else is playing with us in Carnegie Hall. Can you name your collaborators?
Okay. The rhythm section. You can find this particular trio on a record entitled Kaleidoscope, of which, once again, is jazz interpretations of, see if I can remember, oh my, of Debussy, specifically Debussy. I have to remember my own record. Have mercy. Forgive me. But Eric Wheeler, the great bassist Eric Wheeler, plays with Tio Croker and is a great bassist on the scene, and an amazing drummer by the name of Chris Beck. He's also on the record, and he is also working his way through the scene, not only as a performer but as a writer, leading his own ensembles as well.
Wonderful. Okay, I can't wait to work with all
And,
three of you. But yeah,
and
yeah.
so and the unique thing is I know that when some have a certain idea about what a jazz trio is going to sound like, oh, this is jazz, it's going to be, don't be surprised if you hear something a little bit different.
Hmm.
You know?
Let me just say, because I've said it before, but the only way to be surprised is to be there.
Mhm.
So I want to encourage the audience to come. And again, as Cyrus mentioned, and we are so moved to be able to do this. This is Cyrus's your first time headlining at Carnegie Hall, you said.
Yes, yes, it is. And what a spectacular way,
Yeah,
uh, thrive on kind of coming into such a prestigious room, not in the usual. Everyone's, oh, he's a jazz pianist, so he's going to do a jazz show. But
yeah,
no, no, no. There's more to me than just eighth notes. Eighth notes done in the triplet style, if I might
yeah.
say. So,
There sure is. I hope you've walked past Carnegie Hall and you see your big image on the side of the building.
oh my, I gotta go with my phone.
Yeah, take
Gotta
some
go with my
selfies
phone. Go with my phone. Yeah, I'm down here in Washington just I got on a little bit late. I was working with a student here at Howard University,
there. Hmm.
and so having an amazing time. And I looked, I says, "Oh no!" Oh, no. So I scrambled. So my most humble apologies, but yes, I have to walk down there. I'm going to make it my business, so at least I can take a picture with my phone, so I can have it, and then
Hmm.
I can place it on Facebook and say, "See everybody, see,
Absolutely. And
yeah."
again, I think everybody who's going to be paying attention to this show knows how fantastic you are. But I think that, again, seeing you on your own on the main stage of Carnegie Hall with 150 voices behind you. And, the chorus, I think I can say we know these pieces really well. We'll see,
Oh,
you know,
it's going to be a fantastic time.
yeah, and they're
It's
singing,
going to
they're
be a
singing really well.
fantastic. It's going to be a fantastic time, and um, it's just once again just a celebration of a beautiful story,
Yeah,
done in not just the usual way.
for sure. I think the Power in the Blood, your piece, and Beethoven's own version of this story. And what we talked about before you got here is, and you alluded to it, both pieces really run the whole spectrum of emotions.
Yes.
So, there's a part of the Beethoven when it opens where Jesus is alone in the Garden of Gethsemane and is really suffering, and it's very beautiful. And that it goes all the way from, there's a very dramatic pursuit of Jesus in the piece that's really pretty hair raising,
Hmm.
and then the crucifixion and resurrection, and so glorious. And the title of your piece is drawn certainly from that
Yes.
moment of power in the blood.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, just as far as the emotion, there's the celebration. There's celebration, but then there's also the moment, of reflection, the moment of lament. Go to think about the piece Calvary, of where the great Charlotte Small will just emote this great emotion, not only of just the scene of Christ dying on the cross, but it can be this story can also give way to a lot of other things that I'm thinking about. I think I wrote in the notes about just the feeling of about the middle passage. One just my some of my ancestors losing someone dear to them, and then just that pain, that lament. But it's just not all about sadness. We get to the grave, but then there's a celebration. Up from the grave he arose, and so there is joy. There's joy with rhythm. There's joy, and hopefully, as one hears this piece, not only will they raise their eyebrows, but they will also hopefully tap their feet and possibly clap their hands in a very, you
no,
know,
not at all. We're
you know,
telling the audience, make all the
yeah.
noise you want, yeah, as long as you're
But
comfortable with it.
because this is celebration, and I mean, where I came from, we we had we lamented, but then there was also joy.
Yes.
There was joy, there was sorrow, but then there was also joy and sorrow, and so therefore all of that has to come through. All of
I
that has
think
to come.
that's,
All of that.
if I can share a personal story also, my mother and her family were in hiding during World War II as Jews in Poland.
No, yeah.
And the, just this January, my mother, who's 89, and her younger sister at 88, were invited to speak at the United Nations in commemoration of the Holocaust. Um, and it was so interesting. I think on the one hand, one can look at some of these stories and think about division. But
Mhm.
as you and I have talked about, there's so much in human experience that everybody shares.
Yes,
And that
absolutely.
these feelings of the terrible things that happen to a people, and
Yes.
then the way the people triumphs and overcomes what happens,
Well
is
said.
something
Very.
that we have, many cultures and many stories have in common.
Mhm.
And even though, something we've been saying is, I don't think one has to literally be within this or that religion to be able to relate to the music and the message, the
Yes.
spiritual message
Yes.
that is there. And
Yes.
I think that's how you feel, right?
Absolutely. Very well said. Very
Yeah,
well said. Very well
yeah,
said. Um, you could come with your analytical hat on, but more importantly, you hope that you leave feeling better than when you arrived.
absolutely right. And I think certainly the experience of what we're going to do together in 2 weeks, I think we can we promise that, Cyrus, people will feel better?
Yeah, I think I can give a 98% surety on that.
Okay.
98,
That's
98.5.
all right. I'll take
98.
98.5. Yeah. I think that's a great guarantee. So Gail has been very gracious in allowing us to extend, but I think we're about out of time, and I think with a 98.5 guarantee, that's a good place
Yeah,
to end our conversation
yeah,
today.
yeah. I can be. I can confidently say that those who come, and I would encourage for everyone to bring all of their friends and bring all of their enemies, because hopefully after the performance, your enemies will become your friends.
Beautifully
You
said.
And I believe that you will leave feeling a lot better than when you arrived. I'm pretty sure of that.
I'm actually totally sure. I have no doubt. So
Mm.
thank you so much, Cyrus. Thank you again, Gail and Scott.
Thank
Um,
you.
Gail, is there anything we need to do to sign off, or do we just kind of wave goodbye?